In this video, I'm going to show you 4 simple steps to break any habit. I don't care whether it's eating chocolate, whether it's smoking, whether it's not training, whatever bad habit that you have that isn't supporting you on your goals, I'm going to show you how to break this habit, replace it with a new one, so then that way it's going to give you that ability to be able to take those steps forward to achieve your goals, instead of taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back because of those bad habits that you have. Now, this is something that I've only kept kind of secret for people who enrolled in my 21-day challenge. So this is something that I highly recommend that you do for 21 days. So then that way you can really start to create new neural pathways in your brain to that new habit that you're gonna form. Now, keep in mind, before I go into these steps, and I know that this can look pretty overwhelming with so many different things, but you're gonna see that I'm gonna put it together so easily for you to understand and also implement. But keep in mind that this is not some magic secret, and I'm not some chode that's gonna stand in front of a camera and say, this is the magic pill, you just do this and it's all gonna work out. The truth is, there is one critical factor in order for you to break this habit, whatever habit it is for you, and that is motivation. You can have 2 people, person A and a person B, who want to stop smoking, for example. Person A, they want to stop smoking, but they don't really have a strong reason to do it. They're just like, yeah, I'd like to stop smoking. Person B, let's say they have a daughter and they got some heart disease, and the daughter's like, Daddy, please, just stop smoking for me. Obviously, person B is going to be the person that stops the smoking habit because there is a bigger there's more motivation. So before we even go into this, I really want you to keep in mind, and take notes on this by the way, but keep in mind, why is this so important to you? Otherwise, this is just going to be something that you watch for no damn reason, okay? So let's get into it. The very first thing that creates a habit, right? I'm going to show you how a habit is formed, so then that way you can go, okay, now I know how it's formed, now I know how to exactly break it, okay? So trust the process, it's all going to come together really, really simple and really, really easy. So, this is how a habit is formed. When you reach for that chocolate, when you don't train, when you turn the snooze alarm off, when anything happens, any bad habit that you have, it starts with this first thing, and that is a trigger, right? So it's a trigger that sets off that bad habit. And there's 5 triggers that we have, and I call it the PELT system, that triggers you to go into that habit. So when I go through these examples, I really want you to keep in mind and start to think about what is that trigger for you, because usually there's one or two triggers that are the most strongest for you to reach forward to go for that bad habit that you have. Okay, so here they are. The first thing, P stands for people. Okay, so for example, some of you have drinking buddies, some of you have smoking buddies, some of you have eating buddies. Every time that you're with that person on your lunch break, that's your trigger that, hey, we usually have a conversation, this is that person, you reach for that cigarette, or you have that food, or this is the person always brings in that chocolate, you know that person, you know what that person I'm talking about, right? There's a people, it could be your mother, it could be your brother, it could be your sister, it could be anybody. There's a certain person that triggers you to reach for, to go for that bad habit that you have. Or E stands for an emotion, okay? So there's a certain emotional state that triggers you to go for that food, for example, or reach for that cigarette. So it could be stress. You're stressed out, you're angry, you're sad, you're depressed, and you try to fill that void, that emotion that's going on, by reaching for food, or reaching for porn, or reaching for a cigarette, whatever it is. Right? And this is by far is the most common trigger that sets off a bad habit. So that could be a trigger. But for you, what I want you to do, if this is your trigger, I don't want you to just go, okay, it's an emotion. I want you to really dial in and focus on what is that specific emotion though. Because yes, it's good to know it's good to know that trigger of the emotion, but what is the emotion for you? It could be depression, it could be sadness, or whatever it is, right? The third trigger is a location. So for example, you come home and you have a certain part on your couch that you sit at, and every time that you're on that couch, that's usually your place where you have some food, you get the TV on, and that's usually your location. Or it could be your car, or it could be a place at work every time that you go into a certain place at lunchtime, right? Or it could be outside every time that you're on a certain step or a certain chair, you reach for that cigarette. So that could be another trigger, okay? Now T stands for a time. A time of the day, a time of the year, a time of the week, right? So what do you think? When do people normally go out and binge eat? Is it through the start of the week, through the middle of the week, or through the ends of the week on a Saturday, Friday, or Sunday? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So that is a time trigger. Time isn't just a time of the day, it's a time of the day, time of the week, time of the year, time of the month. Okay. Now S is going to lead into this right here, but stick with me, it's pretty simple to understand. Hopefully you can see the F, but S, hopefully you can still see this, let me just double check. You can still see it. S stands for your senses. That is terrible writing, Matthew, but that's okay. S stands for senses. So we have 5 senses that we use, well some say 6, but we have 5 primary senses that we use in order for us to go throughout our day. So here they are. S stands for what we see. Okay, so for example, when you come home from work, you come home and it's been a big day, you walk into the kitchen and you see chocolate. That's a trigger for you to reach for that food. Or you see something on TV and there's an ad popping up and there's food that has been carefully structured for you to be able to what's it called? For your mouth to salivate. Is that the right word? You know what I'm talking about, right? When your mouth starts to become watery. And then that's a trigger for you to either go into your car and go to the shops and get that certain food, whatever it is. So what you see. Another one, H stands for what you hear. So for example, that can be either internally or externally. Internally, meaning you just have some self-talk going on. You create metaphors. I'm hungry as a cow. I'm hungry as a cow. Oh, that's not the right word. I could eat a cow. No. Some people do eat cows. What's the word? I could eat a horse. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about right now. There's a certain term that people use, I could eat a something, and that's a metaphor, right? Or I'm dying to eat. You're dying to eat. Are you really dying, or are you just a little hungry? There's these metaphors that people create, and when you speak a metaphor out, it becomes real. Be internal conversation, what you hear internally, or externally, people offering you some food. Hey Matt, would you like some chocolate? Hey Matt, would you like this? Hey Matt, do you want this for dinner? Hey Matt, do you want some of this? Hey Matt, do you want me to order some pizza for you? That's another trigger. F is already what I've spoke about, but I'll go into it again. And I just use the blue, rookie error, Matthew Cama, and I just dropped my damn pen. What is happening with you, Matthew? Feeling. So we already touched on that. That can be the emotion, kind of works hand in hand. Now T stands for taste. Okay, so for example, I call it the compound effect, and I've talked about it in previous videos where, for example, you just say to yourself, you know what, it's a Friday, it's a Saturday, I've already had, pretty clean week, I've trained hard, I'll just have a little piece, just a little piece of chocolate, that's it, just one little piece of chocolate and that's it. I promised myself nothing after this. I'm setting the standard right now, nothing after this. You reach for that chocolate. If you eat like that, I'll slap you across the face. Do not eat with your mouth open. But then you start to have a little piece of chocolate, right? And then you say, well, I've already had one little piece. I might as well have just another little piece. It's not gonna hurt. I've already had one, it's okay. I've trained hard this week. So you have another piece. And you're like, you know what, that tastes pretty good. Let me just have, I'll just have half a block. Just half a block and that's it. I'm setting the standard right now. I'm making the deal, nothing after this. I'm gonna have half a block, nothing else. You have half a block. I've already had half a block. You don't want to be incomplete. I might as well just have the whole damn thing. So you have the whole damn thing. You're like, well, why stop here? I've already gone through half a block. Let me have some more. You get some popcorn. I already had popcorn. Might as well get some pizza. Let me get some pizza. You have the pizza. Well, I already had some pizza. Let me get some of this. And you have this and this and this and this and this and this. And all of a sudden you just go on this massive frenzy and you go, what the hell just happened? That's the compound effect. Now what's interesting, let me just side note this, the compound effect can work against you in that kind of sense, or it can work for you. You just say to yourself, you know what, 7 days of just following Matt's advice, 7 days of just doing everything that he says in this video, and that's it. And then all of a sudden you start to get that momentum. And you've probably seen it happen, or felt it happen, when you started training routine. You just go to the gym for 3 to 4 days. You start to feel amazing. You got that momentum. You're like a snowball rolling down a hill. You start off really, really small, and it starts to get, it's not going as fast as you want it, right? But then as it starts to go on and on and on, you're like a big snowball, and you just got this massive amount of momentum, and then you can never stop it. So that's all a habit is. So that's the compound effect, but that's the taste. That's a taste trigger as well. So S stands for what you smell. So you're driving your car and this KFC is experts at this. I don't know if they do this intentionally, but they release this smell where people will be driving and they drive past it and all of a sudden they smell this chicken flesh, right? All of a sudden they turn their cars around and they go back into KFC and then they order something. Or it could be at home, maybe you live with your parents and you smell some food cooking, you're like, man, I'm trying to just stick to healthy eating, and they just got some food cooking and it tastes amazing, but it's not good for you, but it smells really good, and that triggers you to just say, stuff it, I'm just gonna reach for this bad food. Okay, so these are the triggers. That's a lot. What I want you to do is, usually out of all these things right here, for that one habit that you have, and I just want you to focus on one habit for now, there's a certain habit, there's a certain trigger that influences you to constantly do the next thing, which I'm going to go through right now. The next thing is the action that you take. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There's a certain action that you take. So for example, the emotion may be loneliness, or the emotion may be boredom. That boredom goes to the action and you reach for food. Cool? So that action, here's what I want you to think about. Why are you doing that action in the first place? If you were bored and you're not eating because you're hungry, right? That's a totally different story. If you're hungry, right? The feeling is in your stomach, you're actually hungry. That's okay. I'm not talking about that. But if you're bored or you're angry or you're sad and you go through that action, whatever that action may be, why are you doing it in the first place? There's one reason. The only reason why you do any habit is for this right here. And once you know this, it's a game changer. Here's what it is. The only reason why you're reaching for that food, reaching for that cigarette, reaching for that thing is because of this. And that is, you're trying to get a certain feeling. That's all it is. When you have that cigarette, when someone has a cigarette, they're not going nicotine, nicotine, nicotine. They're not doing that shit for that reason. They're doing it because what happens is, as they start to inhale, they start to take big deep breaths. They start to change their physiology. And as they start to do big deep breaths, it changes their state. It changes how they feel. Right? Because they're just breathing deep through their belly. When someone reaches for the food, it creates a biochemical result in their body that changes their emotional states. Get it? And what happens is, generally, the stronger the feeling, the stronger the neural pathway in the brain, and it starts to get linked even harder. It starts to get linked even more. That's why sex and pornography can be such a big, can create such a strong habit, because that feeling can be amazing. Right? So, now that you know this, right? How do you break a habit? Now that you know the cycle of how a habit is formed, how do you break it? All you need to do, if you want to break a habit, number one, you keep the trigger, you keep the feeling that you're getting, okay? But you can change the trigger, which I'll go into in a second. But generally, you keep the trigger, you keep the feeling, and you just change the action. And I'll give you some examples in a second, because you may be going, I don't know what that means. Let me show you. So, for example though, if your emotion is depression or sadness, here's what's interesting. You get rid of that emotion, then you have no reference to go into this cycle anymore. You get it? So if you're depressed, and that depression triggers you to go for, I don't know, food. And that food gives you that feeling of feeling relaxed, feeling calm. Well, if you get rid of that depression, you take away all of that, there is no way that you can go into that pattern anymore, because the trigger has been wiped away. So that's another way you can break a habit. So here's what you need to do. In order for you to first change this action, you can't just mentally and decide that, okay, now I'm going to stop eating chocolate and I'm just consciously going to start eating a salad. No, that shit will not work one bit. And here's why. Because of this thing right here. You haven't first created I think I just spelled that wrong, but it's okay if I did, who cares, as long as you understand it. A pattern interrupt. You haven't created a pattern interrupt yet. So for example, let me give you a metaphor of a CD. When you have a CD and you put that on a CD player, the only reason why it plays this unique sound is because there is a certain pattern installed onto this disc. Okay? Now, for you, that sound, the metaphor, right? The CD may be for you eating chocolate, or it may be smoking, whatever it is for you, right? If your CD is on the CD player and it's playing a certain sound, and you get another CD over here, right? Call this, instead of eating chocolate, call it eating a salad. And you put that on top of the CD that's already playing, this CD isn't going to play yet. Why? Because there's still that pattern, there's still that CD that is already playing. So what you need to do is, you need to take this CD out, you need to break it, you need to smash it, you need to interrupt the pattern. You get the CD, you get a pen or something, you get a knife, you scratch it and scratch it and scratch it and scratch it and scratch it, and you scratch the shit out of this pattern. You try to put it back on, it's not going to play anymore, because it's been interrupted so much. That pattern has been interrupted so much. So then you can throw it away, and now you've created space for you to be able to play the new habits, the new CD. When that trigger goes off, usually there is this urge that starts to build up, right? Or that emotion starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger. What you need to do is, you need to become so aware with this. This is not an easy process, especially at first. It is challenging, it is hard, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it can be so difficult at times. That's why you need to create that awareness and that willpower, which goes back to the motivation. If you don't have that motivation, this will not take place. You just go straight into the pattern, okay? So you need to literally force yourself sometimes to interrupt that pattern. So what do I mean by that? For example, right? If you're at, let's say you're at some seminar and someone is speaking like this, and they're speaking very slow, and then all of a sudden they say, fuck! And then they go back to how they're speaking. You're gonna be like, what the fuck just happened then, right? The reason is because they just interrupted that pattern. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and something goes on, there's an alarm that goes off in the background, or someone comes in and they butt into the conversation, and all of a sudden your attention goes somewhere else rather than the conversation. Then when that's all done, you go back to the conversation. What happens usually? You get confused. You don't know where you don't know what happened, because that pattern was interrupted. And if it gets interrupted so many times, you cannot go back to the same pattern. So here's some weird ways I'm just gonna come up on the spot so you can interrupt your pattern. Some of the for my clients, I get them to do burpees. If that urge is starting to build up, straight on the ground, do 5 burpees, and then what happens is, because that pattern's been interrupted, you've created space for you to go for the new habit. So when you've interrupted the pattern, you go straight into the new habit. So jumping up and down, doing big deep breaths, taking a walk, having a cold shower, do whatever you need to do something out of the ordinary. And generally, the fastest way to break that pattern is use your body. Whether you got to dance, whether you got to put music on, whether you got to jump up and down, celebrate, do anything, right? Do something that moves your body to interrupt that pattern, okay? So let me break it down. Let's say, 1, your habit is, your emotion, the trigger is boredom. That boredom is the action that you have now is reaching for bad food. That bad food gives you comfort, it gives you something to do, it gives you happiness, okay? Now, what you need to do is, you need to become aware, after you leave this video, you go into your kitchen, and all of a sudden that trigger goes off. When that trigger goes off, you catch it, you become aware of it, you realize, hey, oh shit, now I want some food so bad. Matt told me that urge was gonna start to build up. That's the time we need to interrupt the pattern. Go for a walk, jump up and down, and what you'll notice, when you come back, that's the time we need to create a new action. So instead of reaching for food, maybe all you can do is something like meditate, or maybe you can find something productive to do, or read a book, whatever you need to do. Then you'll find that as you do that again and again and again, a new habit will start to be formed. But generally, the best way that I personally like to do it is I like to start here and go, what is another way, if the emotion that I'm trying to get is happiness, or something to do just from this action that I'm doing, reaching for food, what's another way that I can feel happy? Oh, okay, I can read a book, I can meditate. All these ways make me feel happy. I don't have to reach for food, because if all I'm doing is trying to get a feeling, there are multiple ways to get the feeling. I don't just have to reach for food. I can meditate, I can walk, I can read. Then you just do that again for 21 days, again and again and again and again and again, and eventually the habit will be broken. And I can't tell you, on a 21-day challenge, people have been emailing, Matt, I've stopped smoking. Matt, I've stopped doing things such as eating chocolate. Matt, I've stopped sleeping in. Touching on that. To show you that this process works, you may be going, well, I don't really know if this works. Here's a very quick way that you can get evidence to show you that this system I'm showing you here works. Here's what I want you to do. So what just happened was I went to go ahead and edit this very video that you're watching, and the camera stopped somehow. So I'm gonna have to just quickly go over the exercise that I mentioned, and so that way I can go back to the editing process. So what I was saying before the camera stopped is that you go ahead and you get your phone, you try this exercise out. This will show you that this process here, it all works. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and lay on your bed, okay? Then what I want you to do is I want you to set the alarm to 1 minute ahead of the time of when you're laying on the bed. Then what you do, as soon as the alarm goes off, I want you to jump crazy, up and down, smile, breathing deep, celebrating as if it was your birthday, as if you just won the lottery, as if you just had, I don't know, you did something very, very exciting, right? Jump up and down as if it's the most exciting time of your life for around 15 to 30 seconds. What you're doing is you're linking up the feeling, the emotion, to the trigger. Right? What you're doing is you're creating a new neural pathway in your brain. Now, you don't just do this once. You can't expect, again, this to work once. What you need to do is, you need to go ahead and do this 5 to 10 times. And then what I want you to do is, the next time that you wake up in the morning, use that exact same sound. And what you'll find is, you will literally feel different in the morning. You will feel as happy as you did as when you're training your mind to do that in the training process of laying in the bed, setting the alarm 1 minute ahead of time, and then waking up, jumping up and down, going crazy for 15 to 30 seconds. The more that you do this, the stronger the neural pathway will become, the stronger the emotion will be embodied into your nervous system. So what I want you to do is go ahead and try that exercise out. And then what you'll find is you'll go, oh yeah, wow, that works. So what Matt just showed me before, this process must work with other habits as well. And that will give you that certainty to implement this process even more. But this is just going to give you that short little process, that short little quick test to show you that this habit triad actually does work. So go ahead, I want you to try this out, come back to this video, leave a comment down below so other people can go, wow, it does work, and then they're going to try it, okay? So go ahead and try that out. And you can also, quick little tip as well, you can actually change the ringtone, right? Because a lot of you have this negative anchor, right? A negative association to that sound that goes off in the morning. What you can do is create a new ringtone, just doesn't matter what kind of sound it is, get a new tone, right? And then start to link up that pleasure, associate that pleasure to that new sound. That's another thing that you can do. I'd actually say that you should be able to do, I actually say that you should do that one instead of the other one that I mentioned before. Create a new sound and link that pleasure to that sound when you wake up, okay? So go ahead, do that little test out, try that out, come back to this video, leave a comment down below. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Give this video a big thumbs up. Now I can go back to the editing process. And until I see you in the next video, remember to love all living things and most importantly, love thyself.